Scott Jennings and Shermichael Singleton react strongly after Democrats score a major win in Virginia's redistricting. So, before we dive in, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe. What stands out isn't just the result, but how surprised and unsettled they seem by the shift in power. The moment also highlights an irony. They criticize tactics, similar to ones their own side has supported in the past.
We have some breaking news tonight, as CNN can now project that Virginia voters have approved a Democratic plan to dramatically redraw the state's congressional map. 92% of the results are in, with just over 51% voting yes on the ballot measure. Now, if this map is enacted, it means Democrats could win 10 out of the state's 11 congressional districts, which would boost the party at large in the fight for control of Congress. Harrington is here to join us. And Harry, obviously, there were a lot of questions of how this would go tonight. Tell us what we're seeing in these numbers so far.
Yeah, I would just say, look, the yes side won. Yes, they are probably going to end up lower than the percentage that Kamala Harris won in terms of the margin. But you know what? A win is a win is a win. And this means a lot for Virginia. And I will just note, just look at this. They are basically going to gerrymander this state rotten. They are basically going to lock Republicans out of power in a state where Donald Trump got 46% of the vote back in 2024. House seats Republicans in Virginia are only going to really end up with 9%. That is quite the imbalance that's going on here, right? Of course, this is part of a larger national picture as well in terms of redistricting. And this, to me, is what is so interesting, right? Oh, we've had all this redistricting, right? It started in Texas. Then it was California. We've done Ohio. We've done North Carolina. We've done Utah. But heading into tonight, pre-Virginia results, the net gain from this mid-decade redistricting was really 0 seats, neither side gaining. But now is where we are right now with the Virginia measure passing. Democrats jump out ahead. They are the ones leading in mid-decade redistricting, leading right now by 4 seats on the strength of that yes vote, however thin that margin actually is.
So, Harry, I mean, obviously, Senator Warren was just talking about 6 months from now, the midterm elections. What could this mean for the fight for who controls Congress here?
Yeah, I mean, if you know anything about the House of Representatives, and you're down in Washington, D.C., so you know a heck of a lot more than I do, I would just say this. The power right now, it's so tight, right? Every vote is so tight in the U.S. House of Representatives. So you just take a look here, and this gives you the math of why this vote was so important. If you talk about the margin of the GOP majority in the House post the 2024 election, it was 2 seats, 2 seats. That's how many seats they could lose on a vote before losing the majority. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about Democrats gaining 1, 2, 3, 4 seats, 4 seats in Virginia. The simple math here is 4 is greater than 2. Without Democrats needing to pick up any more seats, this would eliminate the Republican majority and instill a Democratic majority because the margins are so tight. This vote in Virginia means so very much, and that's why all that money was spent on it. My goodness gracious.
Yeah, a ton of money. Harry, thank you for doing that math for us.
I know, it's very hard, very hard.
This is why we keep you around.
That's right.
Harrington, thank you for that. For more on this, my political sources are here tonight. Shermichael, what's your assessment of what's happening?
I mean, look, I'm not happy about this. What we're seeing is a gradual destruction of incentives in our country. So what happens when you create an atmosphere and an environment where compromise no longer exists? Yeah, maybe this is good for Democrats today, but is it good for the long run? Probably not. For 4 years, there was an argument from my friends on the other side about democracy falling in darkness. Well, how in the hell is this preserving democracy? And look, I'm not saying that one side over the other doesn't gerrymander. Hell, they all gerrymander. It's just not a good thing at all. The American people don't benefit from this. And as someone who resides in Virginia, where you have, what, 40+% of the state that voted for the current president, rather, leaving only 1 Republican congressional seat seems to be in force of democracy and protecting the Constitution and the preservation of these great ideals. I would think not.
Well, I mean, what do you say to that? Because that was a question we asked a lot of Democrats once they launched their own redistricting efforts after we saw what happened in Texas. But a lot of them argued to us was, well, if the Republicans are doing it, we're also going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the real problem here is that Republicans launched a mid-decade redistricting project in Texas. Virginia came up with its results, but Florida is likely to redistrict in the next couple of days. In fact, they held off for the vote, I think, for political reasons, but they are likely to redistrict. So at the end of the day, I think Democrats and Republicans will roughly match out to be equal. We don't know what Florida will do. I think maybe they'll be concerned that redistricting could end up they could end up losing some of those seats because there could be such a great wave. But I think the truth is that Democrats have supported a nationwide ban on partisan gerrymandering. Republicans have opposed that. This was a part of legislation they tried to pass in the last cycle. Republicans have opposed that. I believe that we should have a nationwide ban on partisan gerrymandering. The real thing that set this all off was Donald Trump called into Texas and asked them, not by anyone voting, but just asked the legislature to change. And in California and Virginia, at least they asked the voters to weigh in. This is very different than what happened in Texas. Voters have said they would like to move forward on this because they recognize the stakes with Trump ending accountability through gerrymandering mid-decade.
Scott, what's your take?
Virginia literally had the fairest maps in the nation. They had a 6-5 map, 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. In terms of proportional representation, they had the fairest map in the nation that was drawn, by the way, by an independent commission that the voters asked for just a few years ago. Now they will have the least fair maps in the nation. And I'm not surprised that the yes vote won. They had all the money and all the lies. And sometimes in politics, when you got those two things, you can put something over the line. Even something as egregious as this whole thing has driven Spamberger's approval ratings down into the toilet. She lied to the people of Virginia. They had to write a ballot question that was a joke. They drew maps that were a joke. Now you're going to have huge chunks of rural Virginia represented by 5 or 6 Democrats who all live in northern Virginia within about 15 miles of each other. It's a complete joke. Everybody knows it. And there's a reason that all these national Democrats and all their money came into Virginia because, they don't really care about the people of Virginia. They just care about power.
I mean, if we could just put that new map back up, Nira, I want you to respond to that. But if we could just put that new map back up, I mean, that's back up that you can see, obviously, what the proposed districts that were on this ballot look like.
I mean, here's the thing. Unlike in Texas and other states, in Texas and Florida, they are not putting this up to the voters, right? Republicans, I don't know, they have a lot of money in their coffers. As far as I can see, the RNC has a lot more money than Democrats.
Who spent
a
more?
lot of them?
But you know what the difference is?
They may not have spent more because you're going to lose. Because the actual issue is, here's what motivated people in Virginia. The fact is that because Donald Trump decided to do a mid-decade redistrict in Texas, people believed that in order to level the playing field, you needed to ensure that Virginia acted.
But you know what the difference is?
Ridiculous is
what's the
one thing just to say, no.
With Texas,
neither one of you said a word about Texas.
Well, that's not true. I actually talked a lot about Texas,
where was Scott
and I wasn't happy
Jennings
about
on
that.
Texas
But let me just say this: the difference is Democrats have a number of seats still in the state of Texas. Now we can disagree on whether this made sense morally, ethically. That's a fair point. But in Virginia, you're eliminating all but one.
They took 5 seats
all but one. That's basic math. How is that at all fair? How's that fair?
You didn't give Texans
How's
the right
that fair?
to vote. You didn't put it up to a ballot proposition.
The question is, but how is it fair in Virginia?
The legislature,
Republicans with one. Would you be okay if we left Democrats with 1 congressional seat?
You know what I would be okay with? I would be okay with a ban on partisan gerrymandering across the country. And I wish you guys had supported that.
When the president, so clearly wanted this to happen in Texas, that it did set off this kind of arms race.
Of course it is.
And now it's resulted in
this. That's my initial point. This is not good for the country. Like, I'm a conservative. Hell yes, I want my side to do well. I strongly believe in my principles, and I presume Nira here cares a lot about her side, and she wants to see Democrats do well. But how in the hell is this good for democracy when both sides believe there is no interest in incentivizing on anything? We don't have to compromise. We don't have to figure it out. We don't have to work things out because you know what? We'll have 1 red state, 1 blue state. There will be no purple states. There will be no party in the middle. How does that move things forward when you look at the things that this country is currently struggling with on the economic front, the education front, healthcare? You have China, our greatest adversary, that are moving leaps and bounds ahead, and we can't even govern ourselves appropriately. This should make any person in this country happy about where we are.
You know, I agree. I just think the way to have dealt with this is to have a ban on gerrymandering in any of these states. Mid-decade redistricting is really something has really happened very rarely. North Carolina did a few years ago, but we should really most people are used to decennial. Most states are used to it, like doing it every decade. We should do it, and we should actually abandon all this. And I wish Republicans had joined with Democrats.
Scott, if you were a member of Congress, would you vote to ban gerrymandering?
Well, I actually am rather protective of the states making these decisions.
That's a no.
I don't really have a problem with states making decisions about this. What I have a problem with in this case, look, Texas did what they did. They had a right to do it. Virginia did what they did. What I have a problem with in Virginia is you had a fair map, and you also had an independent commission draw it, and you also had the governor, new governor, tell the people of Virginia during her campaign she wasn't going to do it. So this whole thing was built on lies, and the ballot question, if you read it, was a total joke. You showed the map of the districts. They're a complete joke. And so I think what they've done is they basically disenfranchised
It's like against
90%
democracy. It's against democracy to argue that you're against the voters.
I'm a Republican voter in Virginia. I would never do this to Democrats. I don't agree with Democrats on a whole lot of issues.
So you disagree
There's
with
no
it?
way I would do this.
You
How is
disagree
this so
with it on
funny?
a moral front, and you just on a principle front.
Of course.
But politically, I mean, if you're Mike Johnson tonight and you're looking at this, how does that make you feel about November?
I mean, look, you'd be pretty pissed off, but I'll tell you this. Other Republican states are going to do the same thing. And Democrats should not be surprised if there's one congressional district or if there's 0 congressional districts, because that is where we are now.
Yeah. Everyone stick around. We have a lot more to talk about with all three of you.
The reaction from Scott Jennings and Shermichael Singleton comes across as hypocritical, given how long Republicans have benefited from shaping redistricting rules in their favor. The tactics they're criticizing seen in efforts like REDMAP and maps in states like North Carolina and Wisconsin are part of a playbook their side helped establish. In Virginia, Democrats are essentially using that same system, but with voter approval, making the backlash seem more like frustration over losing power than genuine concern about fairness. Compared to states like Texas, where maps were drawn without direct voter input, it highlights a clear double standard in the debate.